welcome back to the podcast. Today we have none other than Ziggy.
Hi.
Welcome, Ziggy. So, Ziggy and I met through my cousin Kellen, right? I think Kellen invited you to a journal club event.
Yeah.
And then you came.
Yes.
And then Ziggy, the cutest thing about Ziggy, well, there's many cute things, but something I love is every time I show up to journal club and I host a journal club, Ziggy is there before me and has already gone in the ocean. Like, even if it's freezing, shitty weather, no matter what, Ziggy has just come out of the ocean.
Yeah.
I love that energy.
Love the ocean.
1,000,000%. But then we started hanging out. I was like, oh, I like Ziggy. And they've got a lot of really cool shit to say. I feel like you have a lot of, like, cool shit to say.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I really wanted to have Ziggy on specifically because, well, like I said, they've got a lot of interesting shit to say. Not to be redundant. But recently they reached out to me about Instagram, right? About you wanting to start an Instagram. And in that, they made a comment to me that I was like, what? That's such a cool way and like kind of like low-key sad way that you have to say this. But what did you say to me?
Oh, I said that like my existence as a person is resistance.
And I'm just like, we gotta talk about that. Let's unpack that.
Yeah, well, I've heard it. I wasn't the one that came up with it. I actually don't know who did, but I heard it from somebody that, like, especially in Black women, their existence is resistance, right? That, like, the idea is that when you're living in the margins of society, like, you're not white, you're not a man, you're not cisgendered, you're not heterosexual, like, all of those things, like, they add up. And so the more that you're on the margin, the more that your life is like your whole life is about resisting the status quo, is kind of like
100%
how I internalized it. And so for me, growing up half Mexican, half Jewish, non-binary, big, like all of those things, like I live on the margins. And so like just being alive is resistance because the world does not want you, it makes it very clear that it doesn't want you.
Yeah, and then even like your literal survival from like a mental health perspective too.
Yeah.
You being alive is also resistance.
Exactly.
You can't be resisting if you're not alive.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, that's really interesting though. Like, how do you feel like, I mean, like I said, I feel like it shouldn't be that way.
It shouldn't be that hard.
It shouldn't be that hard that like your living is struggle is basically what it's saying, because like resistance infers that there's some sort of like
I guess I think that, but there's also a beauty to it in terms of like,
course. So how do you deal with that like duality of that statement?
I would say that I look for the joy. Like I don't look for ways of making my life harder, which I don't think anyone does. Some people do, but I think
maybe
subconsciously, right? But I like don't. If I think about something and I'm like, why am I doing it like this? Like self-care practices, right? Like a lot of people think that self-care has to be very rigid, and it's not rigid. It's going in the ocean when you want. I was like, I want to go in the ocean. Do I want to wait until after journal club, or do I just want to show up early when I have to find parking anyway? Like, it was a way of making my life easier while also getting some joy out of.
I was gonna say that's because you're that type of person who finds joy in living.
Yeah.
Like, that's something that I love.
That was a mental shift. I had to do a lot of work to get to that point of like
100%
seeing that life is worth living. And a lot of that had to do with realizing that my existence was resistance. And that, like, if I was living in accordance to what the world wanted or what society wanted, I was miserable, right? Like, society wants you to be thin. I don't have the capability to be thin. That's not going to happen, right? Like, I'm just going to be bigger bodied, and that's fine. And so, like, in a way, living and being fine with that is resisting. It's resisting other people who are like, you need to be thin, and like giving into diet culture and Ozempic and all of those other things, right? Like, it's a whole thing. It's a whole culture. They've created a whole culture about being skinny.
Yeah.
And so to be not skinny and to be okay with that is resisting.
Yeah, I definitely feel that way when I'm like on social media, or even just like being a bigger chested or fatter tummy person. Like, you wear like a little shirt and people are like, why are you wearing the slutty shirt with a skinny person wears it?
It's normal.
It's normal tank top. Like, basic, in fact.
Yeah.
So I feel that for sure. I do think in any like fringe group, you know what I mean? Not minority group. Like even queerness feels that way sometimes. You know? We're lucky enough in LA to have like an incredible plethora of gay queer spaces.
Yes.
But when I'm in like really straight spaces, I just feel the negative pull.
Yeah.
Straightness. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I feel like there's just more joy to be had in gay spaces. And not saying the straights are not capable of having joy, but I just feel like inherently queer fat spaces are so much more joyful because people are living in authenticity. And they're not stressed about, do I look skinny in this? Or like, my outfit's fucking cute because I made it, because I had to.
Right. Right, yeah. I think there's a level of, it's like DIY happiness, honestly.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
like,
but yes,
where it's like, I feel like you have to, when you live in the minority and like you kind of embody it, or you get to a point where you're like, I'm not going to try. Like, I'm going to actively try to unlearn what society's put on me. And then
what did that look like for you though? Like tangibly, like what action steps or like mental shifts did you take to like get to that place?
I think one was like the really big decision of like, I want to enjoy life. I'm living life to enjoy it, not living life because I'm alive. Like, or not living. I'm not going through the days because I would, because I have to, because that's what you do when you're alive and a person, is that you go through day to day. But like, how do you live? How do you enjoy life? Because that's the only way to get through it, especially living in the world that we live in now. You have to be living for joy. Otherwise, you're going to be another cog in the machine.
Honestly, too, like capitalism doesn't want us to recognize our resistance because then we'll band together and resist as a group, and then they're fucked.
Yeah, totally.
You hear that, people?
It's community care. One of the things of like working in like social justice spaces is that people talk a big game about community care, but then don't actually practice community care. And like Journal Club is great community care because you took this thing that you enjoy and you're like, I'm sure people aren't journaling enough like on their own. What if we like parallel played and journaled together, and like you made it. I journal more now because I go to Journal Club than I did
epic.
before.
But I also feel like it teaches people how to co-regulate in a way that we've been conditioned to not co-regulate anymore.
Yes, to do like breathing.
Yeah, it feels uncomfortable for a lot of people to even take up space around each other. And so when we do our practice where we stand up and just like move our bodies, like I'm like, take up motherfucking space. Like you have it, take it. Like
or being silly with the questions, like the what do we call it? Like
lube questions.
The lube questions.
Like, quick little silly or just questions that don't have too much deeper meaning, but it just gets you primed to start opening up your imagination. Because even journaling through serious topics is using your imagination because you're actively problem solving as you're writing.
Absolutely. And I feel like the other thing with the lube questions, they kind of get you a little more ready to take on those serious things.
That's the point. It's lube. It's
because you're like,
in the bigger stuff.
I mean, my favorite was when you did the what would you do with $10 million? I don't remember what we journaled about the rest of the day, but I kept coming back to, that influences where I put my resources and what I do with it, like feeds into it.
So this definitely ties into my whole ethos on authenticity, right? Because you're saying you're spending your resources towards things that bring you joy.
Yeah.
And if more people would spend their money, their time, their energy, their mental energy, all of their things, and filter it sort of through their authenticity, they'd be a lot happier.
Yeah. Have you
figured that out?
Someone at one point, and maybe it was you, said that they spend their money on what they want to exist in the world. And that, like from a capitalist standpoint and from a Capricorn standpoint, I was like, I'm putting my resources into what I want to exist. So if I'm putting my resources, I spend a lot of time in museums and things like that for my job. I always buy things in the gift shop.
Oh, when also museum gift shops are the best, low-key.
Yeah, museum gift shops. You will catch me in a museum gift shop spending way too much money. I don't go to Barnes & Noble anymore. I don't do Big Book.
Yeah, I do thriftbooks.com is my thing.
See, I love going to a bookstore.
Yeah, there is something very satisfying.
Yeah, so like here in town we have like Chevalier's books. Like
I went on a blind dating thing there and made some friends. It was the cutest thing.
That sounds so.
It was like 9 a.m. on a Sunday speed dating. I said, "Woo, this is for my people, though."
Yeah, or like just different things like that where like. When you end up or like finding community with that aligns with what you want to be doing, right? So it's not enough to have like queer community, have a queer community with a purpose, right? Like if you're into crafting, a queer crafting circle, right? Like a lot of those spaces that are like activity driven, a lot of times kind of are heteronormative or cisnormative or like there's like certain demographics that kind of gravitate towards certain activities, and like kind of taking up that space, I think is also really important.
Yeah, I feel like too, I found more queer community through like the opposite way. Like I didn't start with like, I want to make something queer, let me be more specific. I had something more specific and I'm like, let me make it queer.
Yeah, that works too.
I wasn't finding like straight, queer, whatever, people who were into the same shit I was into. And I feel like people with Journal Club, yeah, I'm like, here's this offering I have. Do you want to pick up the offering and like put it back?
Right.
And like,
right.
we just keep switching back and forth with the same energy. I met so many beautiful queer people doing that. And I open up for women too because I'm deeply feminine. And
right.
Like Kellen, my cousin, we have talked about like what it feels like to be trans and like question and at the end of the day I'm just like, damn, I'm
You're a woman.
I'm a woman.
No, totally. I think having that comfortability and having that awareness that you are a woman is so important because you're not sitting there like struggling like what does it mean to be a woman? Like you know what it means for you to be
what
a
it
woman.
feels like.
Like I know I don't feel like a woman.
Yeah.
Like I know I'm very non-binary, and then everything else, like as you get to know me, you're like you are so non-binary. Because
you are
all
very
just kind of like.
But that's the point though of two of like cis people.
Yeah.
And heterosexual people. Like take a second, and more than a second. I really urge everyone to think about gender. Like in their own perspective.
Yes.
Like you say you feel like you're a man. Okay, think about like what does that mean? What makes you a man? Like what attributes are
like what connects you to the identity of being a man? Like if you and a group of men were to get together,
they would probably jerk off.
Yes. And also like when you get a group of women together and you're like, what makes a woman a woman? And women are like, is it in your body? And we all go, or not we all, but women will go, no, because there are women that don't have, like for whatever reason, there are women that don't have chests. There are women that don't have, like no uterus. Like, and so it's not the body
It's
part.
just a feeling.
It's the vibe.
It's literally just a deep knowing.
Yeah.
And why I say that even like people who are cis should investigate this. Yes. Is because knowing that you deeply understand your own helps you recognize that other people could deeply understand theirs. Yes. Without you having to project. Because I think a lot of people are just like, you can't possibly, because they can't conceptualize what it's like to question you. Yeah, yeah. Because like, no, I'm a woman, that's that. And it's like, okay, well, take a second. But like why? Why? Like why are you? Yeah. And it doesn't mean like I think a lot of people take it as an attack. Like, oh, I'm being attacked. Totally. You're trying to get me to defend being a woman. It's like, no, I'm asking you to investigate, not defend. Like, absolutely, it's the leading with the curiosity, and I think that that's a big thing that I wish more people in general, but especially people that don't exist in queer spaces, would think about more, is leading from a place of curiosity. Like I was with my partner and I asked someone that they're friends with, I was like, oh, are you fruity? And they got a little like, whoa, like, what do you mean, am I fruity? And I was like, are you fruity? Like, we all know what that means. We all know what it means. Like, and they were like, what do you mean by, am I fruity? And so in that moment, I decided to play with them and be like, I'm asking if you've ever thought about what type of fruit you'd be. And they were like, okay, straight. Well, they were like, no, actually, I haven't. And my friend, who was one of my partner's roommate, was like, that's such an interesting way to ask that. Have you ever thought about what fruit you'd be? I'm like, name a queer person that doesn't know what kind of fruit they are. Oh my god, I don't know. You totally know. If you were going to be a fruit, what kind of fruit would you be? Probably a mango. See, you knew that. Wait, you thought about it. You've thought about it. I'm a pineapple. And even if I haven't thought about it, it just comes to imagination. I just feel like gay people have more imagination. Well, that, and I think that we all participated in something that had stupid icebreaker questions. And so you think about the icebreaker questions that like you would want to answer. But this goes back to like the theater club days. Yeah. I was not that. I also wasn't. I was closeted, sporty, sexy, bisexual. Your sporties didn't make you get to know each other with like weird icebreaker questions at the beginning? No, like and in college too when I went, I like tried to get away from, but I personally hate icebreaker questions. That's totally fair. Unless they're really deep. I don't like stupid ones. I like deep totally or nothing. Fair. My go-to for like when I do it with kids, when I do icebreaker questions with kids now, is if you were a kitchen item, what kitchen item would you be? Oh, that's so and I never do what's your favorite or anything like that. Yeah. I'm like, if you as a person were this thing, what would you be? Because then you're actually sitting there and you're like,
God, what would I be? Like, it's not what I like, it's what am I? And it says a lot about you, because if you don't like yourself, you're, like, gonna pick something totally, like, not stupid in a kitchen, but, like, you're not gonna think of your qualities.
Okay, so a way that I've gotten people to, like, trick them into telling me their qualities is by saying, how would your friends describe you?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Because then it takes the, like, pressure off of you to be, like, humble or whatever the fuck we are when we go to it. So, like, what would your friends say about you? And people are like, oh, they'd say I'm smart and funny and interesting. I'm like, oh, so you feel this way, that way about yourself.
Right, you just don't show it.
And that's beautiful. And I'm like, why couldn't you say that? I mean, there's so many reasons why somebody can't say
that's a good one.
themselves, but
that's a good
I feel like that helps take the pressure. Or, like, what would your dog say about you? You know, just, like, anything to sort of take that.
But not what your cat would say about you, because your cat reads you to filth. Oh my god.
Like, that bitch.
That bitch, like, goes away all day, and then comes home and is like, I'm tired.
My dog would be like, I'm being starved. Although she's absolutely not. Yeah. We do want to do a tangent, but we want to take Coco to a doggy psychic, because I keep seeing them on my TikTok.
I think that'd be so funny.
And the psychics are literally, like, dragging the owners most of the time. The animals are so sassy. I'm like, oh my god, and Coco is so sassy.
Coco's sassy already. Like,
I can't even imagine what she's been on every episode of the podcast so far.
Good. She has to be. She has to be.
She does. So earlier today we were talking about wasps.
Yes.
And I thought that, like, okay, so we're not talking about, like, the animal. Well, no, we are. But, like, tell people, like, what a wasp is. And then let's give some context.
Yeah, okay. So I have used the term, like, so I heard the term wasp, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. So basically...
So, like, describe to somebody what a wasp is.
Yeah.
I am, but I'm not, like, a wasp.
No, but you're not a wasp. When I think of a wasp, I always think of a man.
I always think of a rich...
I always think of, like, a rich man and his, like, wife, his, like, trophy wife.
Yeah, I'm thinking the trophy wife that's also older. So just, like, a hot older woman with
a MILF, but, like, a MILF that...
Like a MILF or even a GILF.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
But they always have, like, a lot of bigger hair.
Yeah,
so
but, like...
very preppy.
Yeah. And I feel like when I thought about it and I was, like, really thinking about it, I was like, you know, we're describing them as an insect. And not only are we describing them as an insect, we're describing them as an insect that literally, like, does nothing but cause pain. Like, if you think about a wasp, what does a wasp's function in an ecosystem other than being a predator?
Being predators.
Right.
Being colonists.
And so it kind of, like, whoever came up with it, like, go you, first of all.
Yeah, but people have been describing other people as insects and rodents. And
totally. And that's, like, a negative thing. And so
but, like, finally it's towards white people.
Right. So finally it's towards white people. And also, the way that I was thinking of it wasn't even, like, in a white people are bad or, like, okay, let's make everyone insects, right? So if wasps are the colonizers and are the people that are taking over other people's nests and eating the young of, you know, like, all of those things, then what's everyone else? Well, everyone else has to transform themselves to be something new. So everyone kind of starts out in this, like, wormy kind of state. Mm-hmm. And then the rest of us who aren't wasps have to become butterflies or moths in order to survive. Like, we literally have to transform ourselves and go inward and build that cocoon in order to fly away from the predators. So
if we're talking in the context of living in the world, you're saying, like, against capitalism.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how, if we're using this as a metaphor, how do we get from cocoon to butterfly? How would you get from your cocoon to your butterfly? Or when in your life does that transition happen? Or is it, like, literally when you're
I think it happens throughout your life. I think you have to transform multiple times and you, like, emerge. I mean, in the insect world it only happens once, but I think we as humans have the ability to shed and to rebirth ourselves so many different times as people.
It's like so we switch it up like a snake.
Exactly, or it could be like a snake, consistently shedding and shifting. And I think, to me, the butterfly metaphor, the reason that I use it is that butterflies and moths create it from within, right? Like, cocoons are created from within themselves.
Which is really wild to think about.
Yeah, they're not, like, external things. Like, they
come from the body of the animal itself. You know, this is gonna sound dumb. I never actually thought about that.
Yeah.
That they actually, like, create their... I'm just like, oh yeah, they're in a cocoon now.
Yeah, but we, like, talked about the life cycle of a monarch butterfly at one point.
Yeah, we always do.
And, like, no one ever mentioned what the cocoon was made of. It was just like, oh yeah, they enter the cocoon and they're in there and then they come out. And you're like, well, that's great, but what's the cocoon? Like, how did we get from caterpillar to cocoon? Like, it doesn't ever...
I don't recall if I did, but we did do silkworms. We raised our own silkworms, and we learned that they cocoon themselves that way. Yeah. It comes out of them. So, like, and then it only makes sense, I guess, yeah. So I was like, I guess we could have extrapolated, but like...
But who's going to tell that? Who's extrapolating when you're that young?
You know, it wasn't me.
It was not,
I was like, this is boring, I'm out.
I was like, I just like that they're butterflies at the end.
Percent.
Yeah.
What type of shedding have you noticed?
I feel like I went back to basics. So after I lived in New York for a year, and when I came back, I worked in a preschool. Mm-hmm. And I think working in the preschool and thinking about myself in terms of what does my infant self need?
Yeah, and really like, inner child shit.
The inner child shit. But taking it outside of like, how do I heal my inner child in terms of like, I know that I have childhood trauma, and more of, how do you take care of an infant? What does an infant need? Yeah. So what do you, as someone who is an infant who's larger, what do you need? You need to eat, sleep.
Be hugged.
Be stimulated.
Be picked up when you're crying.
Yeah, like to be held when you're crying, to be asked what's wrong, to be fed when, you know, like all of those like...
Love and care.
Basic things that like someone at one point gave to you unconditionally. You didn't have to earn it. You didn't have to earn your food. You didn't have to earn that.
But not everyone actually experienced
that. Not everyone experienced that. Yeah. And that was something that I learned. I was like, oh, I didn't experience that. And so I had to go back and teach myself and be like, oh yeah, I do need to eat more than once a day. I do need to sleep probably 8 hours. Like, yeah, those things that like you just don't... You get to a certain point and you're like, they're supposed to be second nature, but they're not. You actually have to go back at some point and relearn them.
If they were second nature, we'd all have sleeping pills, melatonin. Yes.
We wouldn't have like guided meditation to go to sleep.
We wouldn't have half the shit that the world is made up that we need because we'd be awake. But we wouldn't have to not sleep because we wouldn't be so goddamn stimulated throughout the day that we couldn't fall asleep at the end of it.
I would also say that I don't use social media one day out of the week.
Oh, okay.
That was also a really great way to take a step back.
Is it the same day every week?
Yeah.
Which day every week?
Shabbat, Saturday. Every Saturday you will not catch me for 25 hours being on Instagram.
I love that.
It's honestly, I think it's helped not only in my own letting go and shedding for things of myself, but it's also really taught the lesson of you don't have to be in every moment.
Yeah.
And that I think
like a FOMO type of?
That, yeah, like beyond FOMO, like for a whole day, my news notifications are like not going off. Like anything could happen in the world.
You would have no idea.
And I would have no idea unless somebody told me. Because I'm present in the moment. Yeah.
And that is like a gift.
Absolutely. It's a gift, and it's a luxury that not everyone can afford. But turning my Instagram off every day, because it also let me know that moments could happen without me.
That is really interesting. And I think that that's really healthy.
and moments that I was involved in could happen on social media without me.
Yeah.
Right? If you're tagged on someone's story and you're not checking Instagram all day, that story could come and go.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't put it on your own story, like to show that you were also like, you know, like that mutual sharing of
like on Journal Club days when I tag you.
Exactly. On every Journal Club day, and I'm like, mine's the next day that I'm like, oh, I'll reshare.
I'm gonna start posting and tagging the ones you're in on Sundays.
Okay. I would appreciate that, and I will always reshare.
I've taken Instagram breaks before, for sure, but it's always generally been more for a few weeks at a time.
Right.
Like big chunks, but it absolutely destroys the algorithm. And for me, deprioritizing what it means to have engagement on Instagram was something that I needed to do. Because at first I was like, okay, it's a really good tool. And it is. And it's a really good networking tool. And it's a beautiful place to share your photos and videos. But like at the end of the day, I'm not trying to make my living on Instagram. So why am I caring that my video's not getting big views or whatever it is? Okay. And then I was like, what the fuck do I care? The followers that I gained originally were from a group of people that I don't straight men.
Right.
Who don't like even live anywhere in Los Angeles in America.
So it was like literally just like the...
So it's just a bunch of weird dudes, and trying to shift that to women, queer women, even just regular dudes, like creatives.
Right.
That's where I'm like getting stuck.
People who are living an intentional life.
Yes, and I like to really have my shit curated. I found, like, speaking of Ozempic and stuff, I've seen like so many creators recently, like, not speaking of Ozempic, we didn't speak about it. You said it like 1 second in the beginning, and I'm like, speaking of Ozempic.
Yeah.
But social media, I've noticed two that have thrown me off. One creator I love, she, like, I don't know if she's on Ozempic or what, but she's lost so much weight and got like work done. And I used to love that she was real, and now I'm like, ugh, it feels like you're playing into the system. I can't watch you anymore. And then recently I've been seeing this phenomenon of content creators that I like, who are very like natural, normal, who have now gone like internet-y. You know, like they've turned internet-y. Like most of the shit they say is using internet slang, and like they're like doing internet faces. I don't know how to describe it other than internet-y. Like just people who are constantly online. Yeah. And
like that's speaking memes.
Speaking memes, like you say I'm gonna crash out like 17 times a day, like just like really internet based stuff. Yeah. And I feel like the authenticity is just gone. And that's like what we're seeing on social media is like even the people who are like quote being authentic are just still like
you're still feeding a narrative.
And it's like how much of it do you choose to do, or how much of it is because you're online all the time, and that's like we become who we spend time with. So like if you're spending time with the internet, like I mean, you're going to become like the internet.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an interesting one because I think that for me as someone who's like never known how to be fake, I guess, like that's just like something where people are like, yeah, I lied or like whatever. I'm like, how did you do that? Like, how did you just come up with that like bit, I guess? I don't know.
Wait, that's so interesting. Is Kellen sort of the same way? They've just always been authentic.
I've always been me. Like,
and like how did you feel, like as somebody who's never felt like me until the past few years, I just can't even understand what that would be like. Is this because you had a supportive like home life as a child? Like
no, not at all.
Where's it like what made you feel like you could just wake up and be yourself? Or let me rephrase that. Why didn't you ever feel, did you ever feel challenged in that?
Like, I think one, growing up knowing you're different from the get-go, like I think being Mexican and Jewish, so knowing that in the Mexican world you're not considered super Mexican because you're Jewish, and most Mexicans, you know, there's a stereotype that Mexicans are Catholic, which is also like part of the colonization narrative, as well as in the Jewish world, being of color is sometimes like not talked about. It's often not talked about. Yeah. And what it means to be of color in the Jewish world is also like super complicated, and we could spend a whole time talking about it. Yeah. But basically, like growing up being a marginalized person in a marginalized world, no matter what space you're in, you're marginalized. You kind of are like, well, shit, I'm either never gonna be myself, or I kind of have to figure out how to always be myself and develop, like almost like developing that thick skin. I've had to unlearn more narratives that I've then put on myself. I think was a big journey than it was other people's. And like a lot
Would you mind sharing one?
Yeah, I would say like I grew up believing I was ugly. Like
subjectively untrue.
Like something where it's like it's a subjective statement. Regardless, right? Like it is. Like beauty is not objective at all, and like to kind of walk around the like world being like, yeah, I'm ugly, and learning how to navigate being like, oh, I know I'm the smartest in the room, but I don't want people to look at me while I'm being smart. So like I know how to publicly speak, really, like I can just be in front of 1,000 people and just start talking and not care. But that's not because it's because I'm actively not thinking about what I look like. Because if I started thinking about what I looked like in that moment, I would freeze. I'd not, because I have been trained to think that I'm ugly. And I trained myself past what anyone else ever thought it was going to come to, you know? Yeah. Like, you really take the messages that you get as a kid and you just keep telling them, because it eases the pain of, like, if I say it to myself, then someone else saying it doesn't hurt anymore.
I mean, we are the meanest to ourselves.
Exactly.
No one's going to be as mean to you.
No one is ever going to be as mean to you as you are.
And I'm, like, on a mission to end that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's been, like, my big thing, and I think that's part of what I want to use social media for, I feel like, is to be like, I'm big, I'm brown, I'm non-binary, and like that's great. That's honestly probably better than
here I am.
Like here I am, And because I've been this way my whole life, you can too, you know? Trailblazing is difficult and it's not painless, but it doesn't have to be as painful as it is. Like,
it's also like okay to take small steps every day.
Yeah. Small steps every day. Yeah.
Build up the confidence, build up that self-assurance.
Yeah, and I would say getting tattoos, not like that was the start. It was the control of like I'm putting this on my body, and the other part of it was that I was artwork. And I like have a history of self-harm. I'm doing something to myself to cover up the ugliness that I created or the destruction that I created, and I'm literally creating out of the destruction, like
making it art
and making it beautiful, and like
it's really powerful. I've never thought about tattoos from that perspective. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Yeah, all my tattoos are like rededication. They're like rededications to myself in some shape or form.
Like like through the pain specifically.
I don't know if it's necessarily through the pain, but more so like all the things that have happened in my life that have led to me being who I am. I end up holding a lot of things in my body, right? Like, and
so we gotta get those somatic practices. Let that shit go.
Exactly, but I feel like tattoos in a way also help with that because they're like a reminder. So like my tattoo, like my Lech Lecha, which means to be a blessing, like I look at it every day.
That's what you have on your wrist?
Yeah, on my wrist. And that's my reminder to be a blessing. It's my reminder to walk through the world and not cause harm, but to actually try to create good.
Yeah.
And to take it a step further than just like do no harm and take no shit. It's like create something beautiful.
Do no harm, but also like make a loving and lasting
impact. Exactly. Make a loving impact on the world.
Share care.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Be in community. And like community is where you are.
Community is where we are.
Yeah.
I mean, we met through building of community.
Exactly.
And it just opens up the network.
Mm-hmm.
I love getting tattooed though.
Yeah.
I think there's something about it.
It's healing.
It is. And I honestly like low-key fall asleep when I get tattooed now. So I'm like, is this because like...
Is it the high pain tolerance? Is it the sound? Is it the like...
I think it's the high pain tolerance.
I think so too. I think that and the sound of them, it's just such a low buzzing. Just like that consistent zzz.
And
like,
just knowing that the pain is beautiful at the end. Like you're like, oh, I'm gonna have something to say.
Yeah, like I'm gonna like be a new person.
One of my pet peeves with like when I was dating was people would be like, oh, like, so do your tattoos have meaning?
Yeah.
And I'm
which I'm like,
what does that even mean?
Like
yes and no?
What do you mean? What do you mean by meaning? Did I just walk in and go, I want that? Or
like the meaning of this is that it was beautiful.
It was beautiful. Yeah, like I have some flash, but most of mine are like intentional in the sense that I designed them or like I came up with the concept and then someone else designed it. But
even Flash is intentional because it's a reminder of like an event or a space.
Yeah.
And we live in LA where every single fucking event you go to a hiking event, there'll be a tattoo artist there tattooing people. I swear to God.
There's going to be a tattoo artist at Journal Club one day.
I'm like, if I ever get married, I'm doing it. I'm having a tattoo artist at my wedding.
Stop. That would be so cute.
For sure.
So cute. Everyone gets a little matching something. Not matching, but like...
There'll be like definitely...
a splash sheet.
A flash sheet, for sure. Yeah. But like... Not everything has to have meaning either.
Yeah.
Like, shit can just be beautiful. I'm looking at
I have Crush. Yeah, but
my God, it is
It's Crush from Finding Nemo. And my dad has Squirt from Finding Nemo.
Oh, that's cute.
It's my first tattoo. And my dad told me recently, he's like, you know, the whole reason we got you that tattoo was because I needed to make you wait until you were 18 to get tattooed.
Oh my God.
And I flipped it back on him when we were talking about it. I was like, yeah, you're the one that took me to a tattoo parlor at 7. I was sitting there like watching my parents get inked. Like,
that's hilarious.
Of course I wanted tattoos. Of course it was gonna happen.
So tattoos for me are an expression of like art, beauty, creativity, like how I'm feeling in the moment. Yeah, it's like a roadmap to how my life has been too. Like I have tattoos from times of my life that were, you know, very charged by one thing and then another thing. Right. I'm just like an aesthetically driven person. Like I'm a very visual person, so I love tattoos. And I find getting tattooed to be like low-key self-care. Like
it is.
I feel so good.
It makes you think about how you take care of yourself after you get it too.
And you literally do have to take good care of yourself. And if you don't, it'll get infected. And that can end up worse, which is like, that's how life is. Like, if you don't take care of your shit, it can get infected. with negativity, with everything. Mm-hmm. So I like to describe recently self-care in terms of like priorities. So like, what are your self-care priorities? What are, besides, I would say besides eat, sleep, drink, but like you said, like that's not a given for everyone. They just eat well, sleep well, drink well. By charcoal, I mean water.
Water. Yeah, we're not talking.
Stay hydrated.
Stay hydrated.
What are your priorities in self-care?
Do I go outside every day?
Yes.
That's my biggest one. Do I go outside every day? And it doesn't even have to be like people think like going for a walk or going like
just literally standing.
Literally go stand in the sun and like photosynthesize.
Yeah, that's what I say. I'm doing photosynthesis.
I saw someone on Instagram that was like, "Oh, be a sunflower with me," and they literally stand. Yeah. They face the sun. They like they close their eyes and they look up and they like extend their body. But you just kind of stand straight and you're like chest out like.
You receive the sun.
You receive fully. The sun. Totally. Yeah. And like I make sure that the sun touches my skin every day.
Oh yeah.
And if I know I'm going outside like for a thing, like if it's an outdoor thing, I'm wearing something, unless it's cold outside, I'm wearing something that shows as much skin as possible. And not because I want to show skin, but because I
show the skin, damn.
Yeah, I mean I was telling my partner, I was like, yeah, if I have a nip slip or anything, it's fine because like I paid a lot of money, Yeah. I'm a designer, like
we love nipples on.
Exactly. Like at Journal Club, I'm always shirtless.
And you are always shirtless.
Yeah, it's because we're at the beach.
Kellen too. Kellen loves to be naked.
Yeah, part of that is I spent good money on my chest. Yeah. And the other part of it is I want the sun to touch as much of my skin as possible.
For sure.
To really get in that vitamin D.
I've definitely laid out on my patio ass naked, like when my roommates aren't here, because we're not that kind of house where we just walk around naked.
Right.
But
nudity is another thing that I think would really help people in general. I think that if we promoted, I think that if every beach were a nude beach, the world would.
Have you been to Australia?
I'm not.
I was shocked the first time I went to Australia and saw tons of titties because nobody wears bathing suit tops in Australia. That's like standard norm around kids. I love that. Matter. Because think about it.
It normalizes the body.
If you even take 2 seconds to think about nipples, how fucking crazy it is that men can show their nipples and women cannot. I get so heated because I'm like, okay, the only thing that's different is that I can feed a child with mine.
Yeah. Yes.
Which is a huge difference.
Huge difference. It's the power.
Is it the power the reason why we need to conceal? Like, why is it that people are so upset by women's nipples? I'm sure there's so many reasons, but is it because, like, women need to be more hidden? We need to be more secretive? Is it because men can't help themselves and they'll probably hurt women if they show their titties? What is it about titties specifically that make it so that they're so divisive and so
I wonder if it's how much they've been sexualized. I wonder if that has to do with it, is the fact that we've sexualized the female body and said...
Let me phrase this. In America.
Yeah. I feel like there's been such a sexualization of the female figure that, like, hiding it or concealing even just the nipples, you're kind of, like, taking power away from women by saying you have to conceal.
Yeah, but it's like, that's at the same time that, and then there's...
Men are encouraged.
Trillions of dollars being spent on OnlyFans every year.
Totally. I mean, we don't talk about
do you want us...
the double standard that's created.
I'm like, do you want us to be covered up or do you want us to sell naked? Our titties? But if we sell our titties, we're assholes. But if we show our titties for free, we're sluts. So what the fuck?
I mean, in that regard, one, I think that has to do with the fact that we've wanted to taboo sex so much in Western society.
I mean, have you been to Europe?
No.
The first time I went to Italy, and there was a fucking billboard with just titties on it, and I was like, I mean, there was a woman with titties on it.
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
Yeah.
And on TV, they don't blur out, like on reality shows, sex, they don't blur shit out, because it's like, that's normal.
Yeah.
Here we have people blowing up people in cars and things, and that's allowed to be watched by children, but not to consensual adults.
Imagine if there had been more male nudity in Game of Thrones. That's what I always think about. And people bring it up. People brought it up when the show was coming out of what it would have been like to see more dick.
But I was just watching... Oh, White Lotus does a good job at showing dick. We've already seen dicks like 3 times this season, I
Really?
And yeah, I think about it. I'm like, think about the amount of times you've seen boobs and vaginas in a movie, and you do not see penises.
And some might say, well, do you want to? Yes, for the purposes of normaling the body. If we stop sexualizing, or if we take out that sexualization of the body, right? Like, when we see a naked woman in, like, a James Bond film, right? She's supposed to be sexual. But if you just, like, showed, like, so the new season of Handmaid's Tale is coming out, right?
I will not watch it. I had to stop watching that show. I was like, this is too intense.
Because it's what we're...
And it was just like, I was like, why do I have anxiety every day? And I realized I was watching Handmaid's Tale every day. I was binge watching it because it was so fucking good.
Well, you can't binge watch it. That's the thing. Binge watching is another thing that
you can't do with certain shows.
I think it's a huge self-care practice that I have is not binge watching.
Not binge watching?
Yeah.
Interesting. Why?
Because it turns your brain off. You stop thinking after a while.
But sometimes for me, I need to power down.
But I think there's a difference.
So intense.
Yeah, but I think there's a difference between powering down and numbing out. And I think that sometimes TV encourages a numbing out that is different than the turning off, right? Like when you read a book, are you actively engaging or are you relaxing? Or is it both?
It depends. It depends too, like on what.
Reading a like romance novel.
I don't read romance novels.
Oh.
Yeah, okay. I don't read them, but
There was a femme assumption that I just made. That was me making
just
because you're a femme. Yeah.
Gross. No, but I do love to read self-helpy, psychology-based books.
So that probably keeps you on.
So recently, maybe a year or two ago, someone was like, girl, you need to try a novel. And I'm just like, I don't want to read someone's made-up story. And then I did, and I was like, I really want to read made-up stories. They're so interesting. And it's just like a healthy escapism.
Yeah.
It also helps reignite my imagination because sometimes I struggle with the courage to be imaginative. Like I know that I can be, but I can't share it. Why do you think that is? And like what? It's just self-consciousness, you know?
Like, is it the like need to be perfect? And so if like whatever you're creating isn't perfect, it's like not
100%. I am 100% a recovering perfectionist. And I have changed my life dramatically since letting go of certain things, and it has increased the quality of my life tenfold. Like being less perfect all the time. Yeah. But that takes like so much mental work to unpack like why I feel the need to be perfect in the first place. Totally. And then to like
to take that step back.
Yeah, and like take it into like bite-sized pieces so you can actually like work through it.
I think the thing that I was alluding to is like when people judge their imagination and judge what it means to be imaginative, because we're imaginative in our everyday life, right? Like figuring out what we have to eat, what we're going to eat for dinner, that takes imagination.
Yeah, but like that's even hard for some people.
Exactly. So like I feel like imagination is like a big word that people like, oh, I don't have imagination. It's like, you do.
You do. It's just
you totally do.
It's a practice too. Like you have to consciously like practice using your imagination.
Oh, absolutely.
And this is why I love meditation and guided meditation also, because I feel like it's very expansive to your imagination because it's asking you to imagine.
Right, but sometimes so I have aphantasia. I don't have a mind's eye. So meditation is really difficult.
Visualize things.
Correct.
So was something like a body scan good then, because you're not visualizing stuff, you're just focusing your attention?
Yeah, if I'm just focusing my attention on my body and like where am I noticing my body, where do I feel? Like body scans are really good, but something like imagine a light. Like right? Like people are like, imagine the orb going through your body. Like I've had people do that to me, I don't know how many times, and I'm like, I can't imagine the light.
Well, I feel like you've given us so many good nuggets of wisdom, and I feel that way even when we're not talking to microphones, just like in life in general. I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't think about it like that. Thanks for reframing that for me. Yeah.
I mean, happy to do that.
I think we definitely need to get back on here and talk about fatness at some point.
Yes.
And have like a fatness episode. I wish we could have. We might have to switch up the scene one time and have Kellen, me and Kellen do like
I would love
a fatness topic.
Talking about fatness, and not just like fatness in general, but fatness in the queer world. I think part of something for me that I've really like with coming out and being queer is like, how do I exist as a fat queer person? Because our visions of queer people in media are always thin. Until like Rebel Wilson, and even Rebel Wilson got skinny. Like
she got on that Ozempic.
Like, where is the fat queer representation?
Yeah, I mean, I
other than right here.
Where's the bi representation?
Where's bi representation as well? Like even when they were like when Bohemian Rhapsody came out and they were like, Freddie Mercury's not gay, he's bisexual, and we're all like, yes. So why did she like that whole scene was just?
I didn't see that.
Oh, you should watch it.
Yeah, I've been told. I heard it's a really long movie though, and I don't do well with long movies.
Take breaks.
I'm just like,
that's my recommendation. All movies should have an intermission, in my opinion. Unless it's a Disney movie, a solid 90 minutes, it needs an intermission.
I was just gonna say, I recently watched like Cinderella and Pocahontas and Little Mermaid.
How was that?
They're all really short.
Yeah.
And I loved it. Pocahontas watching was not the vibe.
No.
some of the songs I was like, oh my
God, I've been thinking about rewatching just to see what would it pass the 2025 test, and I know it didn't pass the test when we were children.
No.
And like the standards when we were children were so. Have you ever thought about that? The standards of what we were allowed to watch versus what children now are allowed, what is deemed appropriate.
It's like worse and better at the same time. Yeah. Because I was a teenager in the early 2000s.
So
the movies from the early 2000s.
Those Disney Channel original movies were so
not that bad though. Those were incredible. But I'm talking like if you look at mainstream media at the time, they are spouting some crazy shit saying really anti-feminist, racist, sexist.
I mean, I just watched Pulp Fiction again for the first time in a while. And was like, you really let a white man say the N-word that many times on screen. We really let that happen.
I always think about that when they say it in movies. I'm like
you really let him
you said
do
that. You
said it. You said it full chested, like you've been saying it your whole life, and that's a problem. Like
I feel every time I watch Django, I feel really uncomfortable by that movie because I'm like, yo. They say some crazy shit. Have you seen Django?
I have seen Django. Only
it's a very violent movie too.
Yeah, it's not one of my favorite Quentin Tarantino.
I do love action.
Action. I mean, if I'm gonna watch a Quentin Tarantino movie, it's gonna be Inglourious Bastards because I want to watch Nazis die.
Oh, I do love that movie. We just watched it. Gotta watch Bear Skinner or whatever.
Oh, the Bear Jew.
The Bear Jew.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So the last thing I like to do to end the episode is to do a somatic practice.
Okay.
This one is a little bit different. It requires you to use imagination a little bit, actually. Okay. So this is called a social engagement practice.
Yeah.
You could do it alone or like because we're together, we could do it.
Yeah.
And it's learning to recognize signs of engagement in others to help me build safety and security enough to like reach out and make community. It's just to bring awareness to the different aspects of yourself and others that make you feel like you can engage with them. So we start with the eyes. The second one is tone of voice. So is there anything about like a particular person's tone of voice that would help you feel more confident and comfortable? And how can you do the same thing? Like for me, I know loud talkers have historically really freaked me out. And it's like, okay, how can I...
As a loud talker, that's good to know.
Right. I wouldn't actually constitute you as a loud talker.
Really?
Yeah.
Almost everyone in my life thinks I'm a loud talker.
I mean, you might be like, I used to really be self-conscious around loud talkers because it made me feel unsafe because I didn't like people looking at me. So I'm like, oh, the loud talkers aren't what's making me unsafe. It's the idea that people are perceiving me with my friends who are the loud talkers.
Right, that they're like looking at you.
So it's the perception.
Yeah.
So it's like, what in my tone of voice can I convey to others to make myself be a safe place?
Totally.
You know, there's tone of voice. There's regulation of facial features and facial, like, so, you know, when you're like, I'm like, yeah, like understanding that I can mirror you.
Right.
So if you're smiling and I smile back and you smile back and now we're in connection.
I like that. Okay.
You know, so it's like recognizing that. The other one is gestures. What type of gestures feel welcoming and opening? Like if you're standing there with your arms across, you're like, I know this is basic, like, but that's like, you're not signaling, hey, I want to talk to people.
Right. I think that when we're doing these somatic practices and we're like trying to socially engage with people, like to remember that it's a norm now to have something in your hands. 100%. And to use it as almost like a prop.
Well, this is what not drinking alcohol has made me question a lot in social situations. I'm used to having like a drink in my hand or something in my hand, and I'm like, oh, I just feel like I need to be having a purpose when having conversations. So I'm like, okay, what else can I put in my hands? You know, like be it someone else's hand, or you know, like my hand in my pocket,
right? Or
having a purse that I can hold as opposed to put on my shoulder. You know, just like stimulate. Also, because like people have neurodivergencies or social anxiety, so the fiddling.
Totally.
But it's like just being intentional about where you are, like what your eyes are giving off, what your voice is giving off, what gestures you're kind of, and recognizing how those interact in different spaces and how you can be more receptive. So really the practice is just to like think about what kind of things make you feel safe and comfortable and then try to reciprocate them out into the
I love that. No, that's really good.
Just like a mindfulness practice too, like how am I showing up, like what do I look like? what is my perception? But I just think like being aware of yourself and your surroundings and others and like how you're showing up in a space is important.
Yeah.
And this is like kind of super unrelated, but I was watching this show once, dating show for old people. It was the fucking best show ever. But the coach said was be interested, not interesting.
Yes.
And as like an ADHDer who feels like I have something to say about everything, that concept like
that's life changing.
Changed my life.
Yeah. As an ADHD person, it is not hard for me to be interesting. I just
have like lots of shit to say.
I could say something about
dynamic perspectives. Yeah. Talk to a brick wall.
Exactly. Yeah. But to be interested in what someone else is saying, game changer. Because if I'm into like meeting my partner is a scuba diver, love talking about the ocean. Yeah. And I love the ocean, so I can listen to them talk about it.
You're gonna learn shit too.
I'm gonna learn something. And like being in that mindset, always being able and willing and ready to learn. Like to just be in that open growth mindset of like whatever this person is saying, I'm gonna learn something. I'm either gonna learn something about myself because they're gonna say something outlandish, or I'm gonna learn something about them.
We love the outlandish people though, honestly. Well, Ziggy, it has been an absolute pleasure talking with you.
Yeah,
I can't wait to have you back on again. Yay, Ziggy! Applause noise. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you soon. Bye.